Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland brothers. Whatever it is that you want to see, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. No matter whatever that happens to be, ask the Leyland brothers. Come on, be in it and join in the fun. Travel all over Australia. Ask the Leyland, ask the Leyland, ask the Leyland brothers.
The unusual vegetation of the east coast of Australia has been preserved at the Myall Lakes National Park. We take a look at the Myall Lakes system just north of Port Stephens in New South Wales. And everybody loves animals, in particular the cuddly koala. We're going to have a look at him here at Lone Pine in Queensland. And how do the children of the Outback cope with their isolation and with their schooling? To find the answers, we travel to the far western sheep station of Nindathara. Well, we've arrived at the Myall Lakes, just north of Port Stephens, near Newcastle. And we've come here to take a look at the lakes to answer one of many requests to film the Myall Lakes. This one comes from Mr. David Northbrook from Gordon in New South Wales, who says, I've heard and read a lot about the Myall Lakes and saving the Myall Lakes from the sand mining, but I've never actually seen the lakes or the region. Could you please show me Myall Lakes on your program? Well, we certainly can, Mr. Northbrook, and how we're going to do that is by boat. We're going to launch our boat here and take a look right through the waterways of the whole of the Myall Lakes area.
Leggs Camp, located on a narrow channel which connects the southern Broadwater Lake with the northern lake system, is an ideal central spot to launch our motor sailor. The craft is equipped for cruising the Myall Lakes over several days, and to thoroughly investigate the navigable lake system will require at least that much time. As soon as we've motored through the narrow channels, we hoist the sails and travel north towards the largest lake of the system, the one known as Myall Lake. The lake foreshores are virtually untouched, a natural wilderness within easy reach of major cities. The lakes themselves are the nursery grounds for developing larval forms of about 95% of all the fish, prawns and other crustaceans that are caught commercially between Newcastle and Kempsey to the north. It's for these reasons it has been declared a national park. Stopping in one of the many quiet spots for lunch, it's soon apparent that the reeds on the shore form an ideal habitat for all kinds of water birds. Dusky moorhens are fairly common. They're found all along the eastern coast of Australia, excluding Tasmania.
I'm now standing on one of the highest points of land around the Myall Lake system. It's a spot known as Violet Hill. And from here we have a magnificent view of the lakes. To the south down there we can see Port Stephens and the system of lakes to the south. And then as we go further north we can see the ocean and the sand dune system between the ocean and the fresh water of the lakes, because it is fresh water at this point of the lake. And then further to the north the whole lake system spreads out up towards Bungwall.
As well as hundreds of kilometres of shoreline, the lakes are dotted with small islands, like Johnson's Island, almost in the centre of Myall Lake.
These islands like this, and the country like this around the Myall Lakes area, is one of the reasons why it's become a national park. These are natural wilderness regions that are completely untouched by man, and here we have a sort of a subtropical forest on the island.
It's quite easy to imagine that we're in a region much further north, almost tropical in fact. The islands and the swampy sandy country between the lakes and the ocean offer a feeling of complete isolation, of a country unchanged since the dawn of time.
Most of this swampland here and these sort of subtropical forest areas are untouched, and it's just as it would have been when Australia was first discovered. This area falls between the lake system, which is to the west, and the Pacific Ocean. There's also a very complicated system of sand dunes there, which are said to be unchanged for 60,000 years. In fact, it's a very pleasant region, and even a casual walk through here can be most rewarding, apart from the fact that you see some very nice scenery. You're likely to catch some sight of some of the wildlife.
Kookaburras appear to be very common through the national park. Everywhere we come ashore from our boat, they seem to greet us. And with a few food scraps, it's not difficult to encourage them to come even closer. Kookaburras are one of the few native birds which actually seem to thrive on human habitation. They're as happy taking up residence in an outer suburb of a city or perched on a TV antenna as they are in the bush. They make the most of man and never cease to provide one of the most pleasant encounters in the Australian bush. The sand dunes that separate the beach from the lakes are among the few that remain along the east coast of Australia that are still in a primitive state. The ecology here is therefore unique and of great interest to scientists who wish to know why these dunes are so stable. Botanists are studying the native flora of the dunes. Perhaps a full understanding of it will help to stabilise other sandy coastlines where the natural vegetation has long since disappeared. The lakes themselves are unique, a piece of untouched wilderness where the sun has set 1,000,000 times on a tranquil part of nature's handiwork. The Myall Lakes, a timeless region of natural beauty.
We have had dozens of letters asking to see koalas. 10-year-old Tanya Osmond of Claremont, Tasmania, would like to see Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary in Queensland. Lone Pine is 20 kilometres upstream from Brisbane. A regular ferry is met by Strongheart with a koala jockey. This is a long-standing tradition and the visitors love it. The sanctuary is privately owned by Robertson brothers Pat and Paul.
Paul, how did Lone Pine get started?
Oh, 1927 actually, and there's an interesting story. A young Brisbane couple canoed up the river and picnicked off the spot. At that time, a lot of koalas were being slaughtered and also dying in Queensland of disease. So this couple thought it was an appropriate time to start a sanctuary because koalas weren't protected at that time. They did so in a small way, and this blossomed into Lone Pine at present.
Of course, they're completely protected now, aren't they?
Oh, yes, you can't kill them. In fact, you can only hold them in places like this and under special permit too.
And these koalas here, these are the Queensland variety. They're slightly different to the southern ones, aren't they?
Yes, well, firstly, they're about half the weight, and they're much shorter in their fur. Victorian koalas are very furry and woolly. We think they're prettier, and they're easier to hold to because they're lighter.
They look a lot lighter in colour. Is that a peculiarity of the Queensland ones?
Many are light like this, but sometimes if you get a koala in from the bush, you can see one there, it's tanned, it's brown. Whether it's the sun or the elements, I don't know.
And how many koalas would you have in the sanctuary at the moment?
We've got about, well, we always try to maintain about 100. It varies according to the number that we breed in any one year and the number that we release. For example, we sent some koalas over to San Diego recently. We've also sent koalas to Yanchep, New South Wales, Tasmania. So about 100.
Do they breed easily in captivity?
Ours do. We've a large colony to start off with to produce the necessary contacts between male and female, and also we feed them very well. And I think these are the two prerequisites, numbers and feeding, good health, to promote breeding.
And how long will they live in the bush? Or will it be different in captivity?
Well, they live 12 to 14 years approximately. I don't know if they live much longer here, but their chances of survival are very much greater. Firstly, for example, they're protected against bushfires, but also we have a very good veterinarian, a consulting vet who seems to know everything about koalas. He's learned a lot here in the 8 years he's been with us.
How old would this little one be here, then?
8 months.
8 months.
No longer able to get into the pouch, just sticks his head in occasionally for a drink of milk. He'll be weaned in a couple of months' time.
For almost half a century, the koalas at Lone Pine have attracted and fascinated visitors from all over the world. This cuddly marsupial is probably Australia's greatest tourist asset. The koala is a marsupial, not a bear, as its common name would suggest. As they feed on eucalypts, it is important that forest areas be left in their natural condition to give the koala and other native animals a chance to survive. The koala is found only on the east coast, from Townsville in Queensland to southwestern Victoria and as far inland as the western slopes of the Great Dividing Range. The name koala is from an Aboriginal word meaning no drink, although the koala will sometimes drink water in captivity. Almost everyone would like to cuddle a koala. You can at Lone Pine. This is one of the main attractions to visitors.
Sandy, look at me, say yes. That's a good smile.
Babies of all kinds. These dingo pups were born 6 weeks ago and are accustomed to handling.
Have you been handling the pups for long?
Yeah, since they were born.
Right, since they were born.
You put some more corn in my hand. You put some more corn in my hand? Very, very gentle. That's it.
Paul Robertson's daughters, Catherine and Susan, give us a guided tour of the 19-hectare sanctuary. These kangaroos are so well fed, they can barely be bothered lifting their heads for a handout. 250,000 people visit Lone Pine Sanctuary every year, a good indication of the growing interest and concern for our native animals. If children learn to appreciate our unique wildlife, the better chance it will have of survival. Only 40 years ago, millions of koalas were slaughtered for their pelts, and they were almost extinct. As this barbaric practice has been outlawed, the koala is re-establishing itself as a resident of Australia.
A new day dawns on the sprawling sheep station of Nindathana on the western banks of the Darling River in New South Wales. The day for the Cunningham family begins early. 8-year-old Kate is already into her daily chores. Along with her brother Guy, she is the only child for hundreds of kilometres in the Outback. Their story is told in answer to a request from Colin Burgermeister from Redeemer Lutheran School in South Australia, who asked to see how children of the Outback do their schooling and cope with the isolation. "11-year-old Guy is able to carry out heavier duties for his father, but both the children must get something done before the school bell rings, for they do have schooling to do and at a set time each day. The classroom is the veranda of the house, and they must have their work ready for today's lessons to begin on time. 230 kilometres away at Broken Hill, the school teacher is getting her papers ready for today's lessons also. And her pupils, like Guy and Kate Cunningham, are doing likewise, scattered all over the vast schoolroom of over 1 million square kilometres. Many of the students have never met each other, but they all keep in touch by shortwave radio with the School of the Air, a system of teaching unique in the world, for Australia's vast distances are unique in the world.
Now, the only two people in Year 5 who've not had a turn at music yet are Sally and Brennan. Brennan, would you like to do it for me for Friday? Over.
I'd love to, except my son is very sorry he hasn't got a chance yet Friday because he can't afford one, over.
You play a song that you really like. We're just trying to prove that everybody's musical tastes are different, Sally, and nobody's right and nobody's wrong when it comes to tastes in music.
1, 2, 3.
The School of the Air is a branch of the correspondence school, and children like Kate and Guy can even learn music by the use of radio communication. Every day, of course, they have different subjects and set times for all the various grades. While Kate and Guy are having a music lesson in the house, their father, Andrew Cunningham, is busy with the day-to-day running of the sheep station, carrying out jobs like checking the fences.
Now, kids, just
Mrs. Meredith Cunningham acts as tutor to the children as the day's lessons progress and conducts her own kind of competition at recess time.
Spell, the cat was lying on the timber.
Timber.
Oh, that was easy, wasn't it? You're nearly out the door for chocolate biscuit time. Guy, quick as a flash, spell tumbler. Tumbler that you drink from. Tumbler.
Tumbler.
Yes, well done. Kate's nearly out the door. Kate, 6 sixes. 6 sixes. 6 sixes. No, take a step back. 6 sixes, Guy. Quick as a flash.
36.
Well done. 6 sixes. Right, you're out the door. 12 squares.
124.
Right, out the door. Playtime. Ta-da!
The Cunninghams are typical of hundreds of isolated families in the Outback.
Of the century.
So one of the things we've been asked to ask you is what it's like for children out here. Do you get lonely without other kids to play with?
No, too much to do. Much too much to do. Always things going on. Always things to do.
And what about you, Meredith? I suppose you got your hands pretty full too.
Yes, it's a very busy life, Mal. I think most mothers out here wear 2 hats. I'm mum when I'm in the kitchen and washing out jeans, and then the minute I'm in the schoolroom, I'm the school teacher, and somehow the children don't seem to realise I can be in the schoolroom all the morning. 12:30, lunch bell rings, and I run round to the kitchen. They come flying in the door at exactly the same second. What's for lunch, Mum? And somehow I'm meant to produce lunch.
And with the School of the Air, you don't really feel sort of cut off or anything, do you? I mean, you can keep in touch with each other and let each other know what's going on and that sort of thing.
No, it is a marvellous link for lonely children and for lonely women. And the children have 3 or 4 sessions during the week when they can give their news, things that are going on at home and in the district, things that are particularly exciting for the other children to hear about.
Good afternoon, Mrs. McLeod. We're going up on Saturday night to attend a gymkhana on Sunday run by the Pony Club, and I'll be entering my pony Brandy in the riding horse events and most of the novelties. And we're going to stay at the Pony Club President's. Over.
It's really lovely, Guy and Kate, to hear that you're going off to this gymkhana. And we all hope at school that you do very, very well indeed. It's your very first gymkhana, I know that, and you must be very excited about it. And will you please let us know how well you do?
Of course, there are many chores on the farm which the children reckon are more like fun. They both love horses and have their very own. Kate especially likes to bring them into the yard with her cycle.
Stand up, Louis. He's a very fine horse. Going to come after the sheep?
Today is rather special at Nindathana. A mob of sheep are being sent to markets in Wentworth, the nearest town, so the whole family are off to yard them up for the evening. Even mounting her big horse is something Kate takes in her stride.
Put your head on.
There are many city kids who would give anything to be in Guy's shoes, his own horse and almost unlimited space to ride. But this is still work. What Guy looks forward to most of all is the weekends, especially the one coming up.
Well, look at that.
Saturday morning, and with Guy's horse Brandy loaded on the float, the Cunninghams tackled the long drive to Broken Hills Pony Club. As this is Guy's first gymkhana, no one expects too much, but you never can tell. Next year, Kate will be competing too, instead of just watching. The Old English plate is a good test of both horse and rider. For Guy, this is the moment he's been looking forward to for almost a year. Back at the homestead, Guy proudly hangs his first ribbon on a wall that is almost certain to be crowded with ribbons in years to come. Part of the lives of the Cunningham family on the isolated property of Nindathana.
Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland brothers. Whatever it is that you want to see, ask the Leylands, no matter whatever that happens to be, ask the Leyland brothers. Come on, me in and then join in the fun, travel all over Australia. Ask the Leyland brothers.